easy fall leaves drawing for kids is a perfect autumn activity. We're going to start making a pencil drawing with a little trick that will make drawing any shape leaf easier, and then we'll add color with markers, colored pencils, or crayons. The Ohuhu company sent me some markers to share with you, and I'm so excited. When I opened this case, I literally gasped. They're so beautiful. Isn't that amazing? There's 120 colors, and it comes in this beautiful case that I can take with me places, and each of these pens has two different tips on them. One is a brush tip and the other is a chisel tip, and they have other choices as well of tips you can get and different sizes of kits and so forth. So I'm just so excited to share them with you. The paper you use depends on what you're going to do your drawing with. So I'm going to be using these markers, so I'm going to be using a heavyweight paper so it doesn't bleed through. This is also from Ohuhu, and they've included a wonderful little plastic sheet that I can put underneath my pages just to make sure nothing bleeds through to the next page. You could also use cardstock. That would work well. We're going to start with a pencil drawing. And so I've got out my eraser pencil and I've got my pencil sharp. Use whatever markers you might have, and you might also add or use colored pencils or even crayons. I've picked up several leaves from around our house in various shapes. I'm going to start with these kind of oval with a tip shaped leaves because I think they're the easiest to draw. Some of them are starting to turn colors, but it's a little bit early in the season, so we're going to add color to it ourselves, but also draw the green ones. So I could just trace around that leaf if I'd like, but what I'd like to show you is drawing this shape. So this is about this long and about this wide. It's about half as wide as it is long. So I'm going to draw some lines that this is going to fit inside, and I'm going to make it about twice as long as it is wide, and we're going to fit that tip in there and the bottom end down here. This is about twice as long as it is wide, like the leaf. Okay, we're not going to worry about this being perfect. You don't need to use a ruler or anything, but I'm going to make these a little bit darker so you can see what I'm doing. You leave yours very light on your paper so it will erase well. Okay, so when I look at this, I know that this tip is going to fit in this end, this tip in this end, and I know it's a curve. It's a curve around, kind of like a rainbow that comes to a point down here. So I'm going to draw that inside of this box. It might go out just a little bit here as I draw my curve, and I'm going to make it a point into that end, and I'm going to do the same on the other side, but this looks more like a smile on this side. So I'm going to draw a curved line that comes up into a point on the other end. So this box kind of helps me know that I'm in the right proportion, so I don't draw a bunch and then not have it the way I like it later. So I like the way that looks. I think that's pretty good. So I'm going to erase those outside lines. Those were just help lines. Okay, I have something that looks fairly close to that shape. Okay, this is a little rounder on this end than it is on that end, so I'm going to do a little correcting on this end of the leaf so I have it the way I like it in its shape. You see that? So I could make it larger or smaller if I want to. I could make a large leaf by just making that box twice as long as it is wide, and then I just used those little points on either end. So that's just a little trick with drawing, is making an outside box to fit it in. Okay, next I'm going to look very closely at these leaves. It has some lines in them. It has a center line that goes all the way down the center from tip to tip, and then it has some lines that go out from the center and kind of curve out to the outside edge. I'm not going to worry if these are perfect and they don't meet in the center. This one's in between that one. So I'm going to draw these first, draw some lines that go out and kind of curve out to the outside edge. I'm not going to worry if they're perfect. And the ones on the other side aren't coming out the same spot. They're coming out from kind of between, and they curve out and about like this. I'm not going to be perfect. Not going to worry about being perfect, just kind of similar. And then there are some littler lines. I'm not going to worry about those too much, okay? And I'm going to add my stem that comes out of this end. And it's two lines that go side by side, and it has kind of a little bit of a uneven looking end right here where it was hooked onto the tree. And there I've drawn my leaf. Let's add some color to this. This leaf is completely green. This is the same variety as this leaf, and see how it turns yellow in the fall? So I'm going to make it a yellow color. I'm going to lighten up my lines with my eraser. I drew them quite dark so you could see what I was doing. So I'm going to choose these two right here to make my yellow. And I'm going to start with this lighter one and color it in, and then just add a little bit of the darker to make it to make it look like this leaf. You can use your markers or your colored pencils to color yours in. Then I'm going to take the little darker color, and I'm going to just go over a few areas kind of in the center and around the edge where I feel like it looks a little darker. And end up really covering most of it up. And then do you see the lines? They've kind of turned a little bit of a brown color. I'm going to use my chisel tip and just lightly go over that center line with my brown. You can use your markers. I'm going to go over those lines. They're not perfectly straight. They have a little bit of a zigzag on them. They have a little bit of darkness along the outside edge, just a little bit. And then I'm going to use that same light yellow to start with on the stem. Oops. I'm going to do the whole thing, but this little brown end was a little bit darker. So I'll use this brown on that. If you want to see what it looks like that. And then the rest of the stem also had kind of that same little brown line down through the center. And I can draw some more little lines on this if I want, because there's some little lines that are coming out of those big lines. I want them very light. And this little point kind of keeps going. There we go. Okay, so there is my Osage orange. So what if we are drawing a leaf that isn't so evenly shaped? Something like this, or like this. We're still going to draw a box shape around it, kind of like a container to put it in, so that we can find where we want to put these points. So if we look at this leaf, we can see that it has kind of a, if I needed to draw just several outside lines to box it in, I could come down here, and then down here. So you kind of look at the outside edge, and you look and you think, okay, with just measuring simply with my pencil, it's not quite as wide as it is tall, as long. So I'm not going to worry about this being perfect. But let's look at this leaf shape. I'm going to draw a line that comes down this way, a line that comes this way, kind of down this direction. This leaf kind of comes this direction, and then it kind of comes down into a point like this. Now, this may not be perfect, but it is almost as wide as it is tall. I'm going to make it just a little wider here. I'm going to go over these lines darker so you can see what I do, but don't make yours too dark because we're going to be erasing this later. I just want you to be able to see that I kind of made a box to put this in. Now I'm going to see if I can use this to make this shape so I can figure out where to put these tips. Now I'm on this leaf also, do you notice this line that goes from the end to end? I'm going to go ahead and draw that lightly in the center here because that cuts this shape in half. Now I'm only going to look at this outside half. Okay, so this little tip is going to go right here. This tip is going to go about a little more than halfway over here. And this tip is up here. So this has a scoop between here and here. Let's draw that scoop. Almost a V, isn't it? This is a deep scoop that goes between this point and this point. Okay, there's our start of this top part. Okay, now from here to here, I have 1, 2, 3 points. This one's already there. This one's not quite halfway down on this line, and this one's almost to the bottom of this line here, or to the bottom. Okay, so this one, I'm not going to worry about this point yet. I'm just going to come down and make this deep U here. It doesn't have to be perfect, but I'm going to make a deep U between these 2 points. Now between this point and this point, I'm not going to worry about this right now. I'm going to make another very deep U. Do you see? It comes pretty close here to the stem. So I'm going to make a pretty deep U here. Now I'm going to come back and I'm going to add some of these little points. There's a little point right here, a little point right here, a little point right here, a pretty big point right here. It pokes out. Tiny point right here, and a pretty big point right here. And then I'll draw back on here. Tiny little point right here. And then this comes on here. You can't see it very well, but there's a little point almost to where this hooks on. And I'm going to make another little U right here and then down. That's the outside edge of our leaf. Let's do the same thing to the other side. There we have our outside edge. We drew it inside of this box shape, this container that we made, so we knew we were kind of getting it in the right proportions. Then I'm happier with it when I'm done. I drew this line and cut it in half, and I worked with each side one at a time. All right? You can do it. So when we study our leaf, I notice all of these little veins in here. We already have the center line that we put down the center of the leaf when we drew the outside edge, but I'm going to draw in a few of these veins. And if I notice, it comes right from this tip down to the stem through the center. Doesn't have to be perfect, This one comes from this tip all the way and angles down this way. This one from the tip in and it angles downwards from this little tip. Do you notice the pattern? You can draw as many of them as you want. Just kind of notice where they're starting and where they end. They don't have to be perfect. I'm liking what we have here. I almost forgot our stem. Our stem comes out of the bottom. It's two lines that are close together and almost parallel, and it has a little bend on the end. So we're going to go a little ways and then bend a little. So there's our leaf. And we're going to erase that outside box. There's lots of different types of oak trees. I think this is a pin oak, but I'm not 100% sure. I'll look it up in my tree identification book. That's helpful when you're out taking a nature walk, to have a book that tells you, or you can use your phone and take a picture of it, and you can either have an app or ask Google to tell you what it is, and it will help you identify them. Unfortunately, my oak tree is not going to turn colors for quite a while. So I do have a silk oak leaf that I'm going to look at. I'm not real thrilled with that, but it will do. It has similar lines and is kind of an orange in the center and more red towards the tips. So I'm going to imitate that with my markers. You can find the markers that you like your colors to be like. I'm finding several that I'm going to try. I'm going to try this red, and I'm going to add some of this burgundy. So I'm just going to draw a couple lines with my markers, my Ohuhu markers that I'm using for this project. I think I'll use that color, and I'm going to add this color. And for the internal center color, I'm going to use, I think I'm going to use this color right here. I'm going to add in some of the same brown that I used up here. I'll use that down here as well. You can try out your colored pencils or whatever, or your crayons if you want to use those. Let's see, I think I'll use the orange to color the whole leaf. Right, then I'm going to go on the other side and do the same thing. Now I could choose to come over this with a red colored pencil if I would like to, and I could do some of my shading over that with pencil. In fact, I think that's what I'm going to do. That's mixing the marker underneath with some red pencil. I'm using my Prismacolor pencils that I just love. This makes a fun blending of colors. I'm going to make it more red on the outside tips and then make it lighter as I come into the center. I don't want any hard lines. I'm not trying to draw lines. I'm making a very light coloring over it. And you can see some of the orange through there. I'm liking this effect. And I'm coloring from the outside in. And do you see how I'm using my lines kind of coming the same direction as these vein lines? I'm going to use a brown pencil to add a little bit to these lines so we can see what we did with those vein lines. Don't have to be perfect, and I'm going to outline that with just a little bit of the brown to make the outside edge look a little bit clearer. And looky there, I think we have a pretty nice looking oak leaf there. So you can kind of look at all the different shaped leaves and decide how you're going to draw them, using that little box shape to kind of hold in the shape with just a few straight lines, and then drawing the inside shape to fit into that box. It's a great technique. Thank you, Ohuhu, for bringing me these beautiful markers and this wonderful drawing paper. I like how these easy fall leaves drawings came out, don't you? For more great craft ideas for fall, come on over to welcometobananas.com and join the fun.